Welcome to the Business of School podcast, brought to you by Cole Connect. Get ready for a journey of topical insights, engaging conversations, and maybe a few aha moments from the business, finance, and technology side of schools. Cole School experts are your host, and with our guests from the world of education, we're about to embark on a learning adventure to support you in the business of your school.
Mike Parker is an IT leader, writer, and former Vice President of MITIE with over 20 years of experience, including work at NASA Ames Research Center and in 4 schools. He's passionate about the ed tech industry and the people who drive it. Known for his strategic thinking, bad jokes, and trademark Hawaiian shirts, Mike balances serious IT projects with a good dose of color and humor. So welcome, Mike, to the Business of School podcast. Let's start with the founding of Parker IT. What was the catalyst for you?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's like I worked in independent schools for a long time, and I used to joke with my staff members. It was kind of like, look, if there was like someone on their deathbed, where it's like every minute, you just think like every minute of your life is precious, like right at that end. I didn't want them cursing like my name on their deathbed, because I forced them at some point in the past to do manual processes that just should have been automated. So I guess that thought just really stuck with me, and I guess it's why we exist, to try and get rid of those sort of manual processes. And I guess it's just, I just don't like to waste people's time, and I just, really am passionate about automating all the processes that we can.
You didn't want to be known as the guy who made them fill it out in triplicate.
Yes, and I've had to do that multiple times. I worked for a school where they had carbon copy paper.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to have like 4 or 5 different copies, and you couldn't throw any away, or maybe one of those 5 you could throw away, but it had to be the certain color one.
Yeah.
And so you had to tear out the original one and put it in. But anyway, you know the story.
I know the story. You can throw away the green one, but not the yellow one or the white one.
And the white one would circulate, and then it would come back. But if it got lost, this was a problem.
I hear you. Well, Mike, I noticed you're very passionate about school systems. Can you break down for our viewers the main difference between all of these acronyms that we have? What's the main difference between a SIS, an SMS, or a SAS, or any other acronym that gets floated around?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and so there are some other ones as well. So I've heard MIS as well, and I think I don't know really, but I think in the end, some of it comes down to marketing. Some of it is real. In the end, I just use all of them. I typically just use SIS because it's a little bit easier, because SMS is obviously something else, so text messaging. So I just usually use SIS. Technically, if you get into it, I think if you look at a SIS, it's more of a basic system versus an SMS, which normally an SMS will usually have finance components and possibly payroll. But the practice of how it's used in within the actual field is that everyone sort of mixes it up. So I just use SIS, and that just keeps it easy. There are some other acronyms that is actually helpful to sort of know if you go down these projects. So one of them is just the LMS, so the Learning Management System. That obviously is a different system entirely. SSO for single sign-on. So just to sort of, that's something that most people are familiar with now. When we talk about SISs, we sometimes talk about APIs. And rather than talk about, the funny thing is, if you ask many IT professionals what API stands for, they have no idea. It's just APIs. This is how we integrate, right? And so that's what's important. The other term that I think is important to know about is what you call tech debt. And so when you look at 2 SISs, you've got the old one and the new one, and you start thinking about why, I need something done. How come it's taking one so much longer than the other? And what that is that they've got all this old code that's sort of making it so that, if you think about when they have to turn the ship around, you've got the old code is in there and they have to update all of those to make this small change. And that's called tech debt. So this new company that doesn't have all that old code, it's very easy for them to write because they only have to update this much code, whereas the other one has to update that much code, and then that much code, and that much code, and that much code. And then they have to test all of that and make sure it didn't break anything. And so that's tech debt.
Okay. And so if I break that down, we're really talking about any SIS. We're just talking about a school information system and really what they put into there, what they feed into that. And I guess one of the things that we're talking about today, I'm hoping we can talk about, is about that tech debt and sort of the backwards and forwards that might take place from system A to system B.
I guess in terms of that, that tech debt, that sort of, I guess that integration portion between that system A and system B, in terms of that tech debt, if you have an old system on an old architecture, it's a lot harder for you to build integrations. And when you build those integrations, they tend to be shallow. So you might have a system that can integrate with just read capabilities from a SIS, and they can only grab a few fields. That's pretty shallow. It is useful and really important, but it's sort of, I don't know, if you had levels, that would be sort of, maybe your level 1 integration. Whereas really you want to get a bit more deeper, and you want to be able, ideally what you want to do is you want to be able to pull information from the SIS. You want to be able to take that information, ingest it, and turn around and feed some new information back and have the SIS be able to do something new. And so that interaction, that sort of two-way integration is actually really, really handy. Systems that don't have that, like some of the different SISs, will sometimes not bother writing that. And you're probably thinking, well, that's what the customer wants. It is. The customers want two-way integration, but it costs money to do that. And a vendor might not want that, because if they write the two-way integration, it makes it very easy for you to leave or for you to use a different product. And so if you're using 10 modules of a vendor versus 5, it's a lot harder to leave if you're using 10.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is good. It leads me into my next question about you've recently written an article on LinkedIn. I'd encourage everybody to go over there to your page and then have a look at your article on stickiness. Can you just explain to us what you mean by stickiness?
Yeah. So it's basically when a vendor tries to trap you into their system. So some of it is the nature of the system itself. Like SISs are complex. Even if you don't like your SIS, you're probably not going to change for 5 years, even if you don't like it day one. But the problem is when it's not the system itself that's the issue. It's the problem if the vendor actually tries to trap you in there. And you can tell this by your interactions. In particular, let's say that you decide to leave. And you say, okay, well, I'm going to leave on, let's say, December, 31st, 2025. But you know what? My auditor really says that I need that for the next year. And if I don't have that, there's a huge cost to me. Some vendors will just say, okay, that's fine. You take some of the old vendors, like let's say Maze, SAS 2000, they'll just give you that. You can continue to use the product, read-only access. There's no cost to them. There's no cost to you. You just get to use it. Now, some other vendors that people are leaving right now, let's just say, I won't mention any names, but let's just say that there's a vendor in particular that a lot of schools are leaving. Now, if you find that you're leaving that vendor, they could allow you to have read-only access, which is very valuable for you for short term and of no value to them. Like, it doesn't cost them anything. It's not, And instead of giving that to you for free, they'll charge you. And so you might end up paying $50,000 or $100,000 for something that doesn't cost them anything. And they're just doing it to get that last bit of money out of a school. So that's not ideal. Part of this as well, one of the other bits about sticky that's probably important to understand, let's say you sign a 5-year contract. Okay, so I've made an agreement. I have to stick by it. I have to give you money for 5 years. A really good company will see that I'm unhappy year 1. Year 2, I decide I want to move away, which will pretty much almost never happen in year 2. But let's say that I'm very unhappy and I decide I want to run away. A good company will actually help me run away. And the reason why they'll help me run away is because if they don't, then for the next 4 years, they have a very angry customer that's talking to everyone about how bad their product is and calling up their support all the time and bad-mouthing their support. So now the accountant isn't happy when I leave, but everyone else is. So the sticky company is focused on keeping the accountant happy, but not keeping anyone else happy. And so James Leckie, by the way, from Schoolbox mentioned one other area. The other area, which is quite interesting, is it's almost like the problem from The Hobbit, right? So if you think that you're Gollum and you're sitting down in this cave, Hobbit comes in and you're like, Hobbit knows his way in, but does he know his way out, right? So with the SIS, you get your data in, can you get it out? And a sticky software solution doesn't actually let you get your data out very easily. And if you can, you might be able to pull the data out, but it actually means nothing. So because it has to be formatted in a way that the other program uses it. I'm not sure if that's easy to understand that, or if
I understand it. I'm sure our viewers will understand it as well. Let me take a little segue here for just a second, Mike, and just ask about. You've said easy to come in, easy to get your data in, and in an ideal world, it should be easy to get your data out as well. Yeah. What are some signs, or what are some things that schools should look for at the beginning stages? So I'm looking at I've still used spreadsheets and Word documents at my school. I might even use FileMaker Pro, not to badmouth FileMaker Pro, but I might use FileMaker Pro, and that's my SIS. That's my SIS. I'm out there. I'm looking at all the vendors. What should I be looking for in terms of data in and data out?
So I think if you're concerned about this, what you do is you think about. So you start asking questions related to so this is day 1 when I'm bringing in data. And a lot of people don't think about at the very end. So start asking questions about the very end, and maybe the vendor might not be the best person to ask. You can ask them, but you may be talking to a salesperson that doesn't actually know. So let's say they might have just started 6 months ago. They might be from corporate, not education. They might not actually know. If you start asking the community and talk about people that have moved away from a product, you might figure out why they've moved away and how difficult it was. But you can also ask the company as well. What resources do they supply? What do they charge for it? Maybe put that in the actual contract. Will you get read access for 6 months after if you ever move away? And that would be a great thing to put into a contract.
Yeah. I think it's a lot about having those discussions, at least thinking about some of these items before you start talking to vendors, and just have those in the back of your mind at the very least.
I think you're right. I also think as humans, though, it tends to be one of those those things that we're happy to push off because that's a discussion that probably has to occur between 5 and 15 years down the road when we might not be working for the school. So it's easy for us to put that off, but that is the discussion that should be had.
Yeah, agreed. Mike, can you talk to us about the state of, and this is going to be in two parts, and there might be two big parts, but about the state of ed tech now, and I guess the second part is how vendors are approaching schools.
We could talk about this in a couple of different ways. The first way I think we'll talk about, I think the state of ed tech is, I'm thinking about writing an article about asking the question of, are we in the age of integration? And I think arguably we are. And that means that, by that what I mean is that all the ed tech vendors that are out now realize that they have to basically connect within the ecosystem. And by and large, most of the vendors get that, and they actually are actively working together. Not all of them quite understand that, but most of them do. In terms of ed tech as a whole, we're seeing that. If you look at what's going on right now in terms of the different SIS vendors, there's a lot that's going on. So we've got new players in the market. We've got Veracross, which is now established, and that people aren't sort of looking at Veracross and sort of saying, will they be around or no, or not? And they're sort of accepting that Veracross is here. It's getting a lot of traction. We've got another, so Veracross from the US. We've got ISAMS that is from Britain or the UK, and that is just coming in and trying to make those sort of inroads, and we'll find out if that happens or not. Really good systems, both of those. From where I stand, we've got the established players like Taz and Synergetic. They're actually still working on to write APIs and to work with that tech debt that they have. So they're both old systems. They will have tech debt, and trying to sort of modernize them as best they can. It'll be interesting to see where that happens. I think, I won't comment too much on that one. And you've got systems like Compass and Central that are typically from that public school sector that are trying to get more into the independent school. So Central's been trying for a longer time to get into the independent school. Compass fairly more recently, but they've been actually making a lot of inroads now. Separate to that, you've got these big platforms, so not systems, but platforms like Microsoft Dynamics and Salesforce that people are designing systems on top of that, that will have, I don't know, that itself is a huge conversation about whether or not that's the right thing or not. And you've got people on both sides of the fence. So that'll be interesting. And basically, you're just looking at vendors are getting, I guess they're under pressure not to create silos and to integrate with everything.
Mike, one of the things that I've read in a number of your articles is about relationships and trust in the various vendors. So what are you seeing in terms of those relationships and that trust in vendors with the schools?
I guess some of what I have seen is in general in the ed tech industry, I think we're pretty lucky. If you think about outside of ed tech, you might be working, let's say that you're working with, let's say a payroll company, and, over a season, you've got a whole bunch of part-time staff. So you get this huge bill. In theory, the same thing could happen in ed tech, right? You've got software that will be by the students or it'd be by the staff. When that happens in ed tech, in general, what I see is that the ed tech companies, essentially, they do the right thing. So they want to actually help out the schools. They understand that some situation happens and they want to be fair. So that's in general what I see. There's the occasional exception. But I think the one thing that a lot of these companies that have been around, a lot of them understand that schools talk to each other. And so if you do the right thing, then that gets around and everyone wants to use your product. And if you do the wrong thing, then you've burnt your bridge. And I think one of the challenges and potential good things about this venture capital industry, where you get it, one company buys 4 or 10 products and they bring them to Australia, or they might have been in Australia. If the company burns their bridge in one area, it could burn their bridge for all of them. And so people can actually potentially run away from all their products. The opposite can actually be true as well. And so it can be an advantage. But I think it's easier. I think it's easier to go wrong than right. But yeah.
It takes, the old saying goes, it takes, years and years to build trust and only mere minutes to destroy that trust. So I think that speaks to what you've spoken of there. So
yeah, and I think that's true.
Mike, what can schools do better to prepare themselves for at least having the conversation about their system, whether or not that conversation goes down the track of we want to change, or it's we're on a really good wicket here. We've got something that's really great. We want to just make it better. How can they at least start themselves to have that conversation?
So what I like to do, and what I do for all the engagements that I start with, is I start off with mapping out their current systems and how they interconnect. So then once that's done, you start to understand where the improvements could be. Then the second thing that I like to do is that I actually will have a discussion with every person who is sort of, in corporate, I think corporate terms, you talk about a system owner. But really, we're thinking about the person that is probably the main stakeholder of that system. So let's say for argument's sake that a school has, we talk to the sports department, and the school has Clipboard, because Clipboard is quite popular with schools with co-curricular. So you want to discuss with them and find out, do they like Clipboard? Do they not like Clipboard? Do they like Clipboard but need to use it more? Do they need more training? So these are the sort of questions that you've got to find out, and then that sort of gives you, I guess, your sort of sacred cows in the school that you don't want to change. That people are happy with those, and then you hear about these systems that they're unhappy with, and the specifics about how they're unhappy and they want to change. So that almost gives you like your goals. To if you do have a system change, then that's what you want to change. And then when I take that information, then I can kind of think, well, when I'm evaluating the next sys that I'm looking at, if in fact I know, for instance, one of the sacred cows is Clipboard, it could very well be something else like DigiSort Funnel or something else. So as an enrollment system. So what that tells me is that when I'm looking at that system, that new sys, I'm not worried about how it does co-curricular, but what I want to know is how does it integrate with co-curricular? So in this case with Clipboard. So if it has a really strong integration, then that's a bonus. If the sys company comes to me and they say, our Clipboard integration, not so good, but why do you need it? So that's okay, but that's not really meeting the requirements of the school. They like Clipboard. That's, in this case, I'm just saying, for instance, in this case, they really like a product. So I'm not trying to change it. What I want to know is, can I bring something on board that will sort of integrate and make that, it will bring it into the big picture. And some SISs get that better than others, and those are the ones I tend to recommend.
And I think that speaks to I guess the value of getting the right people in the room and having the right discussions with the right people, because they're your stakeholders. They're the ones who are going to be driving whatever system. And it might be as simple as, we didn't realize that our existing system does X. And that's what we've been wanting it to do. So it's just a matter of getting the right people in the room at the time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And the funny thing is, sometimes schools actually have really good systems, but something has happened internally. Like, let's say that system, the perception internally is that that system is horrible. And the system isn't horrible, but something has gone wrong and they think it's horrible. You still have to get rid of the system, because it might, even though the system is good and you can do amazing things with it, you just have to accept the fact that something has gone wrong within that school and that bridge has been burnt, and you just have to move on.
Excellent. Mike, what sort of, can we leave our viewers with maybe one little tip or trick for them to just to put in their toolbox, in their toolkit, just to take away with them? So what's one sort of tip or trick that we can recommend to them?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about just one. So I could probably name off at least a dozen. I'd say, for one thing, if you're looking at SIS projects for 2026, hopefully you've already, you've either made up your decision now or you shortly will do that, because as time is getting on, you don't want to, I guess what I'll say is, you don't want to be the school that makes up your decision on, in late November and tries to get it all done in January, because you're setting yourself up for failure. And so you don't want to do that. I like to do a SIS project with a very long sort of testing process. And part of that, when you start thinking about that, the reason for that is, let's say that you're a school and you've got 200 staff members. Anything that's configured incorrectly in that system potentially is affecting 200 staff members and making their that impact is times 200. So if it caused me 5 extra minutes within the day that I lose because something isn't configured right or it doesn't work right, and 5 minutes isn't a big thing, but you times that by 200, next thing you know, you've got 1,000 minutes a day. And on top of that, that has a cost based on the perception about how well the school can actually do the project. Did they fund it properly? Did they provide enough training? Did they communicate? All these different things. So I spend a lot of time working to make sure that things are done right before I actually basically release that to all the staff members and get them to use it. So it's, the I guess the corporate term is user acceptance testing, and I do an awful lot of that.
I'd probably put it, if I were to say, I'd probably put 3 things. I'd put, 100% timing. Just think about your timing and your planning. Just be ahead of the game. It's not something that you're going to decide that I need to go down to the shops and I need to pick off the shelf for tomorrow's dinner. It is a long-term thing. I think the second is, which is what you said, Mike, is communication. You need to have a discussion with your stakeholders about what's going to happen. It's so important. And I think the third thing for me would be just be aware of that bell curve in terms of the change management that's going to happen. Everybody's going to be very excited about it on day 1. And at about day 100, they're not going to be so excited about it. But by the time it gets to day 200, they're going to be excited about it again. So just understand that change management curve comes into play.
I think one of the interesting things, so like I said, I could name a dozen. One of the things that I usually find, and this has shocked me from the first school that I sort of worked on, I just could never conceive of this. So in a lot of schools that I work with, and now just keep in mind that these are they tend to be like schools that have been around for a long time, and they have sophisticated processes to deal with, child well-being and welfare and all that sort of stuff, and all these sort of compliance regulations. And what you find out, if you peel back the curtains a little bit, is that day 1, you implement a new SIS, and people are said, okay, so everyone fill out your roles. And what you find out is that the teachers, and by the way, I like teachers, is that they won't fill out the electronic roll. And you just say, come on, really? And somehow there was a process that I didn't know about that occurred in the background where there was a paper roll that someone just filled out by hand. And it shuffled it along, and someone ended up taking that paper roll and put it in the old sys, and they want that process to occur until the end of time. And just thinking, I understand, it's not that hard.
We can get there. Come on, let's do this together.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I see. I think some of the other sort of tips, if I just sort of really just thought about something, is make sure that you've got an adequate budget. Don't expect people with a full-time role just to suck this up as part of their job. They've got other things to do. So that's some of the things I think about. Data migration is an area that these can go really wrong. So make sure that I would normally recommend budgeting to get external help for that. Some people can tackle that internally. In general, that's a big area where it can go wrong.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today and having you as part of the School of Business podcast.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you, man.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Business of School podcast. We've enjoyed the conversation today and would love to have you join us for future episodes. Please hit the subscribe button and follow the links below to find more information and resources to support you and your school team. Until next time, keep being innovative, keep being awesome, and remember, there is always opportunity to improve on the journey. Thanks for connecting.